Okay, so our first session for today. So thank you all, first of all, for attending via either in person or online. This is our second annual Smartsheet Knowledge Share Days. So we're very excited to get it started and kick it off. We have two sessions starting us off today. So Miranda is running an introductory session over on the other room, the other Zoom link. And in this room, we are working on project management. I felt like I'm having some more fun with my theming on it, so we went Harry Potter today. If you want some more fun theming for tomorrow, my AI session is a Terminator theme, so we'll have some fun with that one too. So for today, Mischief managed to conjure order from Project Mayhem's project management. Within Smartsheet. Okay, so on our agenda today, first we are going to have introductions, then we are going to discuss templates and how to best select templates. Our third thing is going to be a solution showcase, and the last thing is different resources. I had a little more fun with it there. So the room of requirement always has kind of whatever you need. So any resources you need we want to make available to you. So all right, sorting hat ceremony, our introductions. So I am Deena Duran. I work for HSE Finance and Administration Shared Services. So I do work for UNM, and same with all of our presenters throughout our Smartsheet Knowledge Share Days. I am also a Smartsheet overachiever. So for those that are not familiar with the program, Smartsheet does have an overachiever program where they select, each year it's about 10 people that select out of all these people that apply. So last year when I got admitted to the program, and it's like a 2-year cohort, there was over 300 applicants globally. And so I was one of 12 selected. So it was one of those, I was like, oh my gosh. It was very exciting. So yeah, thank you. So we have a lot of different meetings, and we have like a WhatsApp chat. So a lot of times if I have folks come to me with questions that maybe I can't answer, or I struggle with, sometimes I'll reach out to them if I know, like, one of you guys has done this. Like, okay, what do you guys do when you come across this issue? So I do have kind of an extra little line of help there. Similarly, I've been certified in the core project management, which is great for Smartsheet and this topic, and then also as a system administrator. I'll kind of manage the back end, which Jillian does, but if she's out, it helps when I know what to do. I also am on staff council, so I'm a precinct 20 representative, so that's primarily like a lot of the HSC administration, as well as like HSC Rio Rancho. And I'm also a precinct at large representative on their executive committee. So, and then it makes sense that I'm a Ravenclaw, so go back to that Harry Potter thing. In case the rest of the thing there didn't give enough of that vibe already. I'm gonna make sure I don't have any Q&As. Cool. So no Q&As means folks can hear me. Okay, so charting our magical course. So these are our course objectives for today. We want to select the perfect template, okay? Because for project management, there's a lot of templates out there, but they're not necessarily the ones that you want to use for your project, because our projects are all different. So we'll get into that. So you need to choose the right one for you, for that use case. And a different project may have a different template, but we'll kind of explore into that. We'll also kind of walk through on setting up a project, especially when you're kind of setting up for the first time. Automations. So I love automations. I'm a huge fan of ways to automatically send notices, send reminders. Sometimes they get annoying when I'm receiving them, but they're there for a reason, and they help me out. And altogether, like, my automations collectively save, I don't know how many hours each month of time. And then we will also discuss some helpful resources, because while this session I intended to be as good as it could be, but you will need more resources for afterwards and kind of where to get started. Okay, so let's get into templates. So when you go to search for a template, we have across all complexities, we have low, medium, and high complexities. Whenever you're at Smartsheet over on the far left-hand panel, and we'll walk through it, but on the far left-hand panel, you have like your browse and favorites. There's also a create button. Recently, Smartsheet changed some things in there, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. So when you create, it's going to want to create items in the workspace unless you create it in the same workspace. And essentially, they're getting away from keeping things stored in they have like a folder for just sheets. And they've gotten away from that largely because I think that's where they want it to be sheets that have been shared with you. And so you can no longer add things in there. Anyways, I'm not a fan of that move, but maybe eventually I'll get used to it. So when you create something, it will create it in a new workspace unless you're working in an existing one. And then, so just as an FYI, so you go to the create button. On the screen, there's a button to view all templates because they give you a bunch of different options, but in more of like the upper right-hand corner, view all templates. And then you'll get to like this screen here, taking up most of the screen. If you scroll, there's the solution templates drop down there, and they have a lot of different options. So they have, ones even from the Engage conference, but also, across tons of different use cases. And a lot of these templates may be double listed because maybe they have project management ones, but it also comes into like marketing and creative management. So some of these will overlap, and modern PPM. So they do have a lot of great stuff in there, but sometimes you get in there and you're like, this is a lot of great stuff. Like, but I don't know what to choose. And so that's what I want to try and help you all to kind of figure out. So as that goes away. Okay, so I'll move to the side. There we go. Okay, so choosing your project management style. Project management for anyone who is not in like officially trained project manager, and maybe that would be a good question for the room. How many people have taken like actual project management courses? Oh, I have a lot. Okay, so see, I'm a semester away from going for my MBA, but concentration in project management. So I started in that program and
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I've advised to go the MBA project and over project.
Yeah, and that's what I had thought too. I started with the project management and took a lot of those courses, and then I was like, you know what? For a couple extra courses, I could do the full MBA.
Yeah.
So anyway, try to show this out. And I was like, oh, I'd love to do the GRE, but anyways, I did it. It's done. Well, GRE stuff. Okay, so for most of you in the room have some project management education. So that's wonderful. So I think a lot of this you all will know, but I know a lot of my folks online may not. So I'll kind of still go through a lot of those. And for each project, you need to decide what method lends itself better. If it's more of an agile method or more of a waterfall. And it could still be a blend between the two of them. But for folks that don't really know the difference, typically when people picture project management, when I picture project management, I picture a waterfall method where it's a project that has a distinct start and finish, like a construction project. We started off, it kind of goes through, we do all this work, and at the end, there's even sometimes a ribbon cutting ceremony, like official grand opening. Maybe the project has warranty periods or whatever, but it has like a distinct start and end. That would be a waterfall method, or it would work really well with waterfall. Agile methods are really great if you have ongoing, like incremental changes for a project. So the typical example for that one is IT projects. So those ones are typically ones where they'll work on something off of the list, work on it, publish that, okay, now go to the next one. We're kind of working in incremental changes. There's never really going to be an end date unless we actually end this software. We're just gonna have those continual changes and keep on going. So when you are starting a project, you have to think about which method is gonna lend itself better to that project. Is this a waterfall where there's kind of a start and end, and maybe it's an annual event, but it still kind of has a start and end, like Smartsheet Knowledge Share Days. When I was setting up our project for this, it was kind of more with that waterfall method in mind. Right, we'll make changes, have lessons learned, but we won't apply it until next year. So we'll keep that in mind. Next, you want to think about the project duration. If this is, a long project, overall your Smartsheet is going to be formatted differently based on how long your project is. And we'll kind of see that as we go to select a template. Next, identifying the needed components, right? For Smartsheet Knowledge Share Days, we didn't need much of a budgeting component. We created a budget for snacks, the perks of attending in person. So for those folks in person, feel free to help yourself. We have a small budget for that, but we're looking at, not something that needs to be thoroughly tracked in a very extensive Smartsheet. Like this was pretty easy, straightforward. We have chips, granola bars, waters, easy enough. A risk analysis. So that's again something that maybe for this we do need to look at risks because we do need to know what things can we avoid. For example, last year one of our rooms left themselves muted for a session and a half. And there was a lot of people on the chat that were like, please unmute, we can't hear anything. Or maybe it was the screen sharing, but it could have been very easily prevented. So, we, at the end of our last project, we had our list learned. That was one of them on our side where we knew we have to double check that we were recording the whole time, that we are screen sharing, that we have mics turned on, because, again, it's very easily preventable, but we need to know that. So risk analysis, how in depth do you need to go for this project that you're working on? Next, defining your stakeholders and report needs. And for me, this one is always a big one because I love dashboards and I usually do a session on dashboards, but this year I was like, we have a session tomorrow, maybe we should do a project management one because we didn't have one of those. So I love dashboards, and frequently I create dashboards that will roll up to different executives. I need to create a dashboard that is easy enough for them to look at. When they look at it, they can spend 5 seconds looking at it and get the information they need. If they want to look longer, they could go more in depth for information, but I have to get all of it laid out in the best way. So when you're thinking of your project, who are you going to be reporting to? And sometimes it's multiple dashboards. I help like the HSC Capital Projects group, and they have dashboards that report up to executive leadership, but they also have a dashboard that reports to the associate director because he needs more minute details. He wants to know who's doing what, his is a lot more detailed. The executive one is much more high level because they want big picture, and that's totally fine. So we have 2 different dashboards for that. When you're choosing your project or your project template, keep that in mind, right? Do you need multiples? And if so, sometimes you just have to create another one, but at least think about what kind of reporting that you need, who those stakeholders are, who's interested in finding out about that. Okay, and then setting your project goals and choose how to track them. Right, with any project, you need to have those goals, those milestones nice and defined. If you need to report them on the dashboard because you want to show the progress that you have made or are making and all of that. So keeping all of those in mind. And we'll kind of go through all of these real quick. The sheets are a great way to have most of your information. this session today is a little bit more of an advanced session, so I'm not gonna spend much time getting into the weeds on sheets, but in sheets, you have several different views, which are these. Yes, so and even this is slightly outdated because they've added a couple more. So typically we work in grid view. For me, I'm comfortable in grid view. That's my preferred go-to. But if you are working in like an agile method, card view or board view, which is not on the screen, but board view is literally supposed to be like a Kanban board. So that and card view should really work well if you are using kind of that agile style. If you're using like a waterfall method, you can always toggle over to Gantt. Because Gantt charts and timelines, because timeline is also a new view they launched recently, they're both really great ways to visualize those timelines, that information, and see how things are related. Gantt especially will show you how they're related and how things connect. Calendar view, great, but the calendar app is better. I typically don't use calendar view because it's not that great. For forms, typically in my projects, I actually do use forms. There's a lot of things I have people fill out anyways. It's a great way to collect data, even in like the capital projects team. Each of their project binders has a sign-in sheet in there because they need for folks to sign in. Like if they're working on a design meeting, they will want folks to sign in because they want to know who was there from our architecture team, who was there out of our staff and faculty. Like we want to make sure we're logging that. And like on one hand, it's helpful information to know, but also on another hand, if you have someone that comes back to you that says, I was never told about these changes and I was never invited to that meeting, but you signed in. So sometimes it's nice to have that information. Otherwise, they also use it for when they have like RFPs and they're going out to bid. And so I think legally they need to have a sign-in sheet. So they do it via Smartsheet. And then folks can sign in on their phones, which is really nice because they put a QR code up. Workflows, we'll get into workflows. I love workflows. Again, it saves so much time. Reports, I'll have to talk about. So one of the things that I do with my reports is, so most of my reports are pulling from individual sheets. But let's say that capital projects group, they have maybe 30 or 40 different projects all together between all their project managers that are all in the same workspace. In each of these 40 projects, they have a project schedule. They have, I want to say a budget sheet, but it's actually 4 budget sheets. So there's a change order sheet. There's and which is about to become 2 change order sheets because we're expanding it out. And they have maybe 8 or 9 different sheets that are in here, plus reports and dashboards and this and that. So you're looking at maybe 10 to 15 assets in one project, and then now times 40, which is why that workspace, when I create a report, I want my reports to include the entire workspace. And that's because as we get new projects, we duplicate, there's a template folder in there. So I duplicate the template. We save as new. I'll go through it because by this point, I'm like, I want the template exactly the same every time. When I go through, my reports are still pulling from the entire workspace. So that means that my reports are pulling, right now they're pulling from over 500 sheets. But keep in mind, if I said I have 40 projects, that's only 40 project schedules. So how do I differentiate my 40 project schedules from 500 sheets? So I have a report that's reporting the entire workspace, but so and I'll show you how that looks when you are selecting that. But I have filters set up in order to do that. And so my filters specifically look at like the name of the sheet. If the sheet name says it contains project schedule, then it knows to pull that sheet. And so now all of a sudden it's only pulling those project schedules. Okay, so now instead of 500 and something, now it's gonna pull 50 or 60. I thought you said about 40 projects. That's right, because in there, we have some additional projects in our template that are just getting started. So their project schedule has, like, there's dummy dates in there that are way far out because they'll need to be adjusted with each project. And so on there, we actually have, and so in the template, the way that that project schedule is labeled, it has like the greater than, less than brackets, and it has like project name and all capitalized. So that way, when we duplicate the folder, folks know that they need to change that to their actual project name. So I have another filter that says that if it does contain project name, to exclude it. Or like, I don't want it to say that. So that way now it's not including any templates, it's not including any new projects that are just getting started, because sometimes the project managers are like, oh yeah, we're starting this project. They'll create the folder, they change the name of the folder, but not the sheets within it because they haven't actually gotten into the details yet. Things are still working out. They just maybe got a little overzealous with creating the folder itself. I don't want to include those yet because those are not accurate numbers. They're still pulling the dummy dates. The percentages are all going to be at 0, but the information may not be accurate. So reports can be a huge deal. And I have it report from the whole workspace, but use filters as a way to limit that. And typically on those, I like to do sheet summary reports instead of row summaries. But, and so it's a little different, but very similar. Okay, now those reports, they feed my dashboards. So, you know, those really work hand in hand, reports and dashboards, and it's not unusual for me to have a dashboard data sheet where I'm doing like a lot of cross-reference formulas to try and pull all of that so that way I can put it up onto my dashboard itself. And as you all know, especially if you're kind of in this project management course, Smartsheet is all about collaboration. And that's one of the big things I like about using Smartsheet. And for anyone who has taken the Anderson School of Management project management classes, they teach you to use Primavera, and
It sucks.
it's very ugly.
It's not attractive, it's like, it works though, it works.
Sandy International Labs uses it, so that's why Emerson uses it. So that's where that comes from. As for once you know more modern, and I say modern because that looks like it's like made in 1995. If you use modern project management systems, whether it's Smartsheet or Google has some too, right, that we're not really supposed to use for HSC, but there's a lot of other options. Monday is, I hear it's not that good, but so there's a lot of different systems out there. The big thing is collaboration, right? That's what we want at this point. Primavera probably lets you collaborate, but not really, right? Didn't we have, I think I was the person in my group that had access.
These systems I have ever used.
Oh, when I finished that
The
class.
person in my group figured.
Oh, hey,
I know, I drew the first draw on that one too, and I had to figure it out. It's like, this is horrible, what? I just use Smartsheet for this, please. So, no, okay, so now we're gonna get into our showcase, so unfortunately, I'm gonna be behind the podium for this, because we're gonna get into this for. Okay. Okay. Screen sharing is paused. Let's. Whole screen, you guys can see my whole screen there. Perfect. Okay. So smartsheet.health.unm.edu, this is a great demo, so you can see when you get this annoying screen and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Continue to cite. Ignore the warning. It'll go away. Okay, and then.
Awareness training for the years.
Everything you need to know. Yeah, for other sites, so, right, but for Smartsheet.
Tina said ignore it.
Deena told me.
Poor Deena.
Okay. Next, how do I burn these recordings? Okay, as a side note, while I'm typing this in, a couple side notes. One is that if you have not already bookmarked smartsheet.health.unm.edu, I recommend you do so. When you do, because this is like this 30-second demo will save people. So I'll put it on the bookmarked bar so I can see it easily since this is not my computer. Okay, so I saved it, but that's not gonna work. So right click on it, go to edit. Change name to Duran. But the URL, you need to shorten it down. If you have that IDP on there, it's logging like a session code. I don't know, I'm not IT, but it will not work in the future. So whether it's tomorrow or a week from now, all of a sudden it will give you a hard time and be like, it's not working. So if you change the URL there, you'll be good to go. So I'll hit save. Ta-da, now it's saved. But again, this is not my computer, so get that before I forget. Also here on the home screen for my HSC folks, this should look familiar. We have a lot of great resources on here. If you are a UNM person, because I know we have a few of you, you're always welcome to come to here. You don't need to log in to access these resources. So you can always jump there at any point. Great, okay. Okay. Usually it's, okay. We are here, we need to go and we're gonna start with a template. And the reason I like, maybe when I'm working from scratch, I will, like if I'm working from scratch for most other things, I may just start a new workspace or a new sheet within an existing workspace. But if I'm doing a project, I typically will go and choose a template. And the reason why is that if you're starting from scratch and you're like, let's just start with a plain sheet, then you personally need to go there and create rows for a start date or columns for a start date, end date, duration, predecessors. I don't think you have to do successors, but you can. But you have to manually put those in before you are able to switch to a Gantt chart. And there's probably more, but the thing is I always forget. So I'm like, I'm just starting with a template. So that is what I recommend for you. So as we saw on the PowerPoint, we're going to go to create. And don't make the mistake that I did. Once I was showing someone in marketing, and you can choose what type of role you're in. And so I chose, it was like, here, if I were to select marketing, since I haven't selected anything yet, it'll, go there. And I can't find a way to change it. So just FYI, if you end up selecting something, it'll be that forever. I've already put in a ticket with Smartsheet on that one. I'm not bitter. Okay. And let me show that again. I took a tiny little screenshot of this guy, but here's view all templates. So if you select project management for this because you were wiser than I was, maybe the one you want happens to come up here. Otherwise, go to view all templates. Once you're in here, here's where you can change, say, good old marketing. All templates, they have a lot of great stuff. Community created, this is stuff that other folks have created, they've shared, there's an official way to share it, I don't quite know how, but I can find out. If anyone has a solution, they're like, yeah, let me share this with everyone on Smartsheet because they can all benefit from this template. That's great, I can find a way to do that for you. Company management, education, all right, so we have a lot of different options in here. Modern PPM, so that would also be kind of a good one. Even product development for any of my project managers, they're kind of more product development. But we'll jump into project management. So here we go. We have different suggested filters essentially on ones that we could do. So if I said, oh, I want, it's gonna be an agile project, so I really wanna go with that. They're going to narrow it down to which templates lend themselves well to that. That being said, if I were to change to waterfall, some of them are the same. Some of them are like, no, use it for item. So, right, a lot of things are kind of inclusive, right? If you need cost of budgeting, okay, we're doing incremental changes, you know, and even OKR is objective.
Okay, all right, we'll see this afternoon, thank you.
So if it's something like that, then that would be great too. Let's see, I'm going to verify here. Talking, I want to make sure. Okay. Let's see, Christine, I see you're unmuted. Were you saying something? Because we can't quite hear you. Okay, we'll keep going. So we can go through, you know, choose different filters that you think would work well. So for this one, I am doing, I think I said, project tracking and roll up is the one I wanted for us to go through today. So whenever you click on a template, oh no, you're fine. So perfect. So whenever you're getting into a template, it will show you the different elements of the template. So, you know, and it has the different icons for a sheet, dashboard, reports, and this guy over here actually shows you how they're all connected, which is nice. So you have your project plan. So this is a sheet which has automations. And this is connected to these 3 reports. So there's an at-risk tasks, project milestones, a task roll-up, and then it reports out to a dashboard on project tracking and roll-up. So if I wanted to, I could say, oh, what does that dashboard look like? And I could click here and see roughly what it looks like. So I'm like, okay, that's not bad. And here for the sheet, like that's not bad. Okay, and it's a medium complexity, so sometimes I'll still steer clear of some more advanced ones unless there's something specifically I know I need. Otherwise, sometimes I'll choose a more basic template and add on to it, because for me to add on things, in my opinion, is easier for me than undoing some of the stuff that they've done that are up there, because sometimes some of it I don't need. So, but that is maybe more of whatever your preference is. But I'm choosing something medium today, and I'll say create from template. So let's do it. Okay, it is creating. Great. So this template was probably made a while back. They set those dates to be 2023, which means that all of them are flagged. That's also why I got that capital projects when I had it set in like 2030. So I was like, I don't want to have to worry about changing my template dates for like another 5 years. We'll toggle this closed, but your workspace, you can always access it through here. We'll close it for now. By default, it defaulted me to Gantt view, which on one hand is like, yeah, Gantt view, project management, wonderful. On the other hand, if you're like me, I'm like, cool, I love Gantt view. To go away for a little bit while I work in the grid. So So I'm like, oh, can't you, we'll get back to you, like, later, but if I'm setting things up, I need to see my grid. That being said, you can always toggle, table view is still pretty new. It is in the works. My theory is that they're probably going to get rid of grid view, which is the thoughts that keeps me up at night, and move us over to table view, but I'll go into why. So table view is new. They still haven't finished working out the bugs, so the move would not be anytime soon. It would be years. But table view, they tried to make it look more modern to try and coerce us into this. Which like on one hand is nice. On the other hand, sometimes it's like too poofy or takes up too much space, which maybe they've made it a little bit better because that was one of our big complaints in the overachievers group. We're like, you're using too much space and now we can't actually see things in it. Like look at the status column. You can't see it. Okay. Table view, I'll come around eventually, but I'm not there yet. So eventually I'll like it. One of the nice things about this one though is that Jillian and I have used it for Smartsheet Knowledge Share days when we are making updates simultaneously, because in table view, those updates are live as they're happening. I don't have to go and hit save for someone to see updates. In table view, we're literally working at the same time. And so that could be a huge perk. On the other hand, if you are doing, like frequently I'll go and try and fix a formula that doesn't seem to be working and I make it worse. And I'm like, no, never mind. And so sometimes I prefer to be in grid view where I can like undo my changes really easily. Like, go back, I'm sorry, I haven't made changes in 10 minutes and I know that, and there's a reason for that. Like, I don't want to make changes yet because I don't know if this formula is working the way I want it to. So I still see that as another benefit of grid view as opposed to table view. So in here, so we can make simultaneous changes, that's cool. I could go and resize this and just stop whining over it. It's not a big deal. So even it tells me every time I make a change, it'll automatically save it. And there is great benefit to that. Now, in here, adding a column looks a little bit different. They have, essentially, there's a lot of things that people have been asking for. One of the new things is they're like, I do cross sheet formulas and, I have to pull information from a whole other sheet, find a way to make it easier. And so one of the things that Smartsheet did was that they have, and even up here, I mean, they have different things, but they have where you could link column data. And right now it's still pretty early on, but you can have it do basic Smartsheet formulas pulling from another sheet. And I haven't quite done it yet, so I can't quite demo it, but that just rolled out pretty recently as something that you can do. But when I talked to Smartsheet IT, because they met with us as overachievers, they even said so many of the things that people want from Smartsheet and that are on the wish list that people posted to the community, they're like, we literally have limitations based on the programming that we currently have, which is why they created table view, because they're like, if we want to open up our possibilities to all of these other things, we kind of have to start from scratch. So that's what they did with this. So in theory, when we get to like the finished product, right? I mean, it's software, so it's never going to be finished. But when we get it to be fully up and running, ideally, it should actually be better than grid view. And I am eager for that day. We're not at that day yet. And I grumble with table view about it. Even like, calendar app. So that's a premium app that we have. For HSE, we have pretty much every premium app that you can get, which is really great. I think UNM is missing like one or two of those, but they have almost everything. And UNM and HSE are on different enterprises. And I will say, just as an FYI off the record, even though we're recording, we did look into combining those enterprises. And so, because we were like, that'd be easier and it makes sense. And when we looked at the price per person, it was more for both sides. We're like, why would the price increase for both? I don't know, it didn't make sense to me. And even as like Jillian and I pushed back, we're like, what's gonna be the price? Okay, then we'll stay separate because those benefits of like being all one enterprise would not be worth the additional price hike that we're already facing because things are just so expensive. So, but just as an FYI, we did look into it and tried to do it. We got quotes for it and it was just too expensive. Yeah, even so up here, table view, it's the view of the future and I'm not there yet, but it will be great one day. Board view. So this is one that is great for, it's great for that agile method. It's like a Kanban board type of thing. You can group things based on, you know, either status or assigned to, right? So you can toggle between those. Board view, it's similar to card view, but I feel that board view lets you customize it more. As you can see, the headings up here are also kind of poofy like table view was. It's probably the card view of the future. So my guess is that I wouldn't be surprised if card view also eventually went away in exchange for board view. So they have, this is kind of a great way to, oh, that's not in progress anymore. You can click and drag it over to, you completed that. Right. Okay, maybe that's still coming. No, it's just grumpy of me. This is why I work in Greek view. See whatever you want. So, I'm not fully committed to board view yet. They even had like a Smartsheet style quiz and they were like, or it was a post and they're like, post, which view is your view? I'm like, oh, it's grid. And like, so when you look at me as a person, it's like, oh, you're very like classic. I'm like, yeah, sure, dress it up all you want. I'm stuck in my own ways. Timeline view, again, it's poofy up here. It's more of their upcoming future ones. You can view, you know, different categories here, you know, group it by if they're at risk or anything like that. And then grid, Gantt, card, and calendar, you're probably pretty familiar with. Card, for those who are not, similar to board view, you can customize board view a little bit more. So that's where that's kind of a benefit. I don't think you can you? You can't click and drag. I don't know, what are they talking about? Board view. You have card. Okay. Eventually we'll get to the point where it'll be better. Back to grid view. Here is where we need to make all of our changes. As we can see, the at-risk column is locked. And that is because it's a formula. I don't know why it didn't format it as a, actually the reason it probably didn't format it as a column formula is because we don't want to show these at risk and just the subtasks. So going into the task name, and even here, sometimes you'll see, especially in templates, when they have column information, you can hover over it and you can see different, you know, kind of hints about what that row will do. So it does recommend not to delete. Now it's just talking about the primary column. You can't delete a primary column, so, but that's that. Yeah, so status, and it's a drop down, right, as expected. Assigned to, so I do recommend go through, you know, whoever your project team is, go ahead and add them in there. And also one of the nice things is that if you reuse your templates and you already have things saved in there, it just keeps those held over, which is also why for that capital projects group, we have a template that we created that we duplicate every time, because I have, you know, stuff like the assigned to, but even, I mean, there's tons of formulas that are in there that I don't want to duplicate every time. If I had to duplicate it for every project, I would cry. Don't make me do that. There's so many. So yeah, we have our start date, end date, percent complete, duration, predecessors. That's all looking great. Now, if we were setting this up for the first time, so remember I was like, we're gonna need a start date, end date, percent complete, duration, and predecessors. It already created those for us, which is great. If we didn't have it created, and we tried to go to Gantt view, it would be a little bit mad at us. And it would probably tell us that we need to either create those columns or align those columns. And so basically over here, and this setting is only if you're in Gantt view. But if you go over to your settings, they have this is all specifically for projects. So project settings, we have dependency settings, we have Gantt timescale settings, and resource management, it's kind of using the old one. We don't quite have access to the new one yet, so I'm not gonna make any changes to that. But looking at our dependency settings, so they're like, which one do you want to be the start date column? Start date, it knows, but if you're creating something from scratch, it will ask you like which one, and it may come with what it thinks it is, and I'm pretty sure you want this one, but they want you to double check it, right? Start and percent complete, and then if you want dependencies enabled. So dependencies are great when you want for things to flow automatically. And you're like, okay, I've worked in Primavera. By this point, I can do my start to start and finish to start relationships and, have lag days and this and that. Cool, do it. If you want more control where you have to manually go in and change your dates, but now you don't have things automatically changing on you, you could always disable it. So it'll also disable resource management, but that's not a big deal. On my sheet, I usually still have them on. So, and maybe it's because I have been classically trained in project management, but it's up to you. Right, I'm gonna this over, but if you don't want to set up predecessors, you don't have to. You can just turn that off. They are handy to have on. Okay, so getting into this, we do see, project name and sheet summary. Oh, so I'm gonna call this. Okay, so did they set it up the same way we did? No, what? Okay. I'll set this up better than someone in Smartsheet did. Project name. Don't give me a typed in field there, that's too much work. On my template for capital projects, it's a formula. Equals this. Okay, so every time I make my template, I copy my template, I create it over in here, it'll actually say it has like the greater than, less than, I guess they're brackets, but they're brackets in my mind because they help to stick out that something needs to change, but it'll say project name. So they'll put in their project name and it automatically updates on the sheet summary, which is incredibly important because when I create my reports, I'm pulling from sheet summaries. And if I want to know what project it is, I only want the project manager to have to input it one time. If they have to put the project name in 8 different spots, I'm not gonna remember all 8. Even if I make a checklist, which I have, but they're not gonna, that's way too much time. Why don't we automate it? So mine is automated. I don't know why they didn't automate theirs.
How did you get to that part? Sorry.
So great question. So the sheet summary, and usually it's blank if you're starting something from scratch, but it is this button right here. So, and we'll see lots of different tools over here. Summary. And so that's where it's residing. All of these are formulas, so I don't know why they didn't make that one a formula. It's pulling, so project start date is pulling from that top row. Okay, project end date is pulling from that top row. Because we have dependencies enabled, if I have something that ends up going out for, that didn't turn out to be 3 days, that one is actually going to be 10. That should be So with this, I'm like, it's not gonna be 1 day, it's gonna be 10 days. Okay, by changing that to 10 days, it changed the parent of that one, which we see is grayed out because it sees that there's a parent-child relationship here. And so by changing that, it used to be 1, 2, 3, 1 day things. And so it used to be 3 days. Well, now it's 12 because now it's adding the 10, 1, 1. And that also changed this duration because this row 19, is a grandparent of the one we changed, which in Smartsheet, they don't technically use grandparents as a name, but it's an ancestor. Well, once you get past a parent, you can just call them ancestors. Similarly, up here, that, if this is vital to the overall project, that means that our end date is going to change too. So if I changed it back, sure enough, I'll kind of go back and forth. We saw this end date, so if you watch it, originally it was the 18th, but when I changed the other one, it pushed this out too. So it states, because I have predecessors set, because I have parent-child relationship set, that these will automatically change as my project goes on. Which on one hand is nice because it makes things really dynamic and like, okay, this task, if I go back and I'm like, it's gonna take 10 days to do this. And we get to it and we're like, no, it did. And it's actually a 1 day thing. What was I thinking? We were fine, it was fine. We can see our schedule fluctuate with that. And you can set baselines. Once you get this, all your dates set the way you want, you can set a baseline. And so we can set it and we can show that baseline in the Gantt chart. So we can compare where we are currently in our project and if we're ahead schedule, behind the schedule, and compare it to the baseline. So you just have to be sure to set it at the beginning of your project so you can set your baseline, right? So we can do that. In here, so on mine, I have a lot of information that I'm pulling from these sheets on like the capital project one. But this is a great place to really start, this is a formula to count if the status for this whole section is not started. So how many not started tasks do we have? 24. Okay. So these just they help to create that snapshot. So whatever I want to report from this sheet, I put in my sheet summary because my report that I build is going to pull from the sheet summary for every single project schedule that I have. So let's see. I know I didn't change dates, but we played around a little bit. Also, I don't think I showed this. Yeah, let me show this real quick. You can change your Gantt timescale settings if you have a project. A lot of those construction projects, right? Maybe we don't want it by months and weeks. Maybe we want it by quarters and months. So we're kind of a little bit more zoomed out. So just kind of like, okay, which, what do I want here? So, and then the start of the week and kind of the way it shows, Sunday is typical for most of us, the start of the fiscal year. I'll change that to July. Okay, perfect. And then we could even say how we want those identified as. So for like quarters, right, whichever one makes more sense to me. Maybe I'll do that. Similarly, for my Gantt chart, it wants to know what I want my display label for. So on the chart itself, when it has whatever it's called, it defaults to task name, which makes sense, but we can also have it as status or assigned to, or if we had other columns in here that were more descriptive on, what we're tracking, it may be better to do those ones. So we can see over here, yes, when I adjust it to quarters, that doesn't lend itself well to this project, right? But we can see sure enough, like all of those headings do have, they do match my task name. There was one more. Yeah, so the other thing I didn't quite go over is working days. Feel free to go in here and edit. It's set Monday through Friday. That sounds great. If you have projects that are on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm sorry. But you could always change that and add that. Or similarly, if you're like, oh no, you know, for our office, Mondays, we always focus on whatever. So we're not even gonna count it as project days. Whatever you change here, when you have your duration days, it's only looking at work days based on this. So, so if you're like, you know what, there's 7 days in a week, that's how I think. You can always add on Saturday and Sunday, just because mentally you're like, when I'm thinking of a week, it's 7 days, so I'm gonna set my duration. If it's a week, it's 7 days. Otherwise you start thinking in terms of 5 days, which is kind of easier math, and you're like, oh, it's 3 weeks, 15 days. Anyways, so your choice there. Similarly, non-working days, so you could go and put in like, I think that's Labor Day this year. Oh, we can check a calendar. Yeah. So perfect, so I'll hit, okay. I could go and add Thanksgiving, I could add winter break, on all those days, and so I know when the calendar is getting to those days, it'll skip over it. And so if it's, you know, duration is 3 days, but 2 of those days would have been Thanksgiving, it automatically pushes it out to the next working day, so the following Monday. So that's nice. So it's good to add those in. Keep it Monday through Friday. Perfect. I'll say okay. Great. So now let's get into a report. Most of project management, I feel, takes place here, and we don't have time. But real quick, I'll show you on our report. Okay, so here, sheets, we're pulling from one sheet. What I was telling you before is that I will select an entire workspace like this. I may select an entire workspace because as things get added to that workspace, I want it to be added to my reports without me having to go in and manually add it in. Because those project managers, they're gonna create stuff. I don't necessarily want to go in and add more reports. So I will select the whole workspace. When I do that, I want to save this. But I think it might automatically save. That's not a big deal. Okay, 551 sheets, right? I said it's 500 something. So I go in here, I see that, and now these are the columns that it previously was pulling in. These are the columns I have on every single sheet that's in that workspace. It is a lot. So it's a lot to do. So I have to kind of pull it up side by side. I look at my sheet summary on the other screen, like which columns do I want to pull? And in the case of a sheet summary report, it's like a field instead of columns, but same idea. And then my filters. So here is where I will say where like my sheet name. And so even if I hit okay. Okay, well, we can't see much of a change because it's also pulling like at-risk things. A lot of these are not really applicable, but overall, when we're seeing that, that's what we're doing. It's already 10 o'clock and I know I wanted time for questions. It's already time. So if you have questions, we do have like 15 minutes before the next group comes in, but otherwise we're gonna need to leave. Wasn't done. Real quick, a key takeaway before we jump off. I do want to share Smartsheet University. I took their project management. They have like a whole capstone a whole like bundle on it, and it was a few different courses, but that totally taught me like tons of information in Smartsheet. If I had to recommend like, what's one thing you would recommend in Smartsheet University? It would be to do the project management things. So I'll even show you real quick. So I know we're at 10. I think it's like Smartsheet. Yeah, that's Smartsheet.com. Okay, when you get in here, sign in. If you don't sign in first, it will be grumpy with you. So we must. Oh. And then North America. Sounds nice to have a European summer right now, though. Okay, so I'm logged in. That's great. The training directory. I go to self-paced training. Some of the instructor-led training is not free. So I go self-paced because I want free. And in here, you'll see a self-paced project management learning path. And there's 6 courses in it. When you are in here. Okay, so we see, you know, they have all these different aspects of it. It's incredibly useful, incredibly helpful. I highly recommend it. So, I know for sure that it is available to any HSC licensed Smartsheet user for free. I believe main campus also has access to it, licensed user. If you are not licensed, then you don't have access, unfortunately. So, but licensed users do. Okay, I'm sorry, we are. Thank you all for coming today. It was